We have that breaking news. Tsunami waves are reaching Hawaii and parts of the west coast after a massive earthquake in the Pacific. The 8.8 magnitude quake hit off Russia's coast last night as one of the largest ever recorded. It sparked tsunami alerts for countries across the Pacific, with people in Hawaii rushing to higher ground. The first waves hit Russia and Japan, with more than 2 million people have been evacuated there. And take a look at this video of Russian doctors reacting to the quake while performing surgery. The head of the local Ministry of Health says the patient is fine. And now officials in Hawaii say the worst appears to be over there, but French Polynesia is bracing for massive waves and potentially catastrophic flooding. ABC's Christian Cordero's in Santa Monica, California, and meteorologist Kenton Jawecki's here in New York watching the forecast for us. So, Christian, what's the latest there?
Well, Diane, there have been more than 30 aftershocks since that massive 8.8 quake off the eastern coast of Russia. And that has created quite literally, right, a ripple effect across the Pacific Rim. In Russia specifically, there has been these, as you mentioned, right, major reports of damage. A lot of it is still being assessed, and so no deaths have been reported so far. But of course, we're also just watching the situation unfold in real time, with evacuation warnings issued across the entire Pacific, from Japan to Hawaii, and then certain tsunami watches along the coast of California, even as far south as the French Polynesia and South America. And so this is something that we're just waiting to see what would happen. And hopefully, you know, the worst has passed, as mentioned, in Hawaii, and soon will across other parts of the region.
Ken, the earthquake's epicenter was not on land, but how worrisome is it to hear magnitude of 8.8?
It is extremely worrisome. It's certainly true. This has been one of the strongest earthquakes on record, when records began back in about the 1900s, right around 1900 actually, when we got those seismographs going. But you can see where that was, just off the coast of Russia, and it is good news that it was off the coast, because if this was inland, it would have certainly been catastrophic damage for just a wide range of an area. But when we look at the history of, here are the 8 strongest earthquakes on record that we have since 1900, you can see Chile at 9.5 is the strongest from 1960, but 9.2 in Alaska in America, that was in 1964. And you can see there we are there now at the bottom, tied for 6th place, 2025 there. Russia also the number 5th place, 9.0 in Russia. That was also very close to where this one just happened last night. So when we look at why this is happening here, it's because it's right along the Ring of Fire. It's right along an area that is in a subduction zone, which is basically where the one of the plates starts going under the other one. And this is where we see the largest earthquakes in the history that we've been recording, at least. It's very known for this area. You can see all these yellow dots, by the way, are where just in the last 10 days we've had a magnitude 4.0 earthquake or greater. So it's very common in these areas to see these earthquakes, but just the fact that we saw this strong of one is certainly notable, definitely. And we do still have in Hawaii a tsunami advisory. Just off the coast of Maui, by the way, earlier they did have 5 foot worth of a wave there. And when we look closer now to mainland, you can see all the way from Washington down to the coast of California, there is still a tsunami advisory there. And we do still have a tsunami warning, I'll mention also. That's going to be for Crescent City, and that's in the northern coast of California. And this is an area that is pretty much the worst place to be during a tsunami hitting the west coast, because they are known, because of how their seafloor lines up to Crescent City, they're known to have the worst impact from this. When that Alaska earthquake hit, that 2nd largest ever, it was devastating to that area. So they're still under the warning. And one thing really to hone in on here, Diane, is that we're going to continue to see aftershocks from this for months to come. So these alerts could be coming back up.
All right, Christian, thank you. Kenton, stick around. I have more extreme weather I want to ask you about. But first, let's bring in earthquake scientist and structural geologist Judith Hubbard for more on the science behind earthquakes and tsunamis. Judith, thanks so much for coming on. Curious, what was your reaction to hearing this earthquake registered a magnitude of 8.8?
Well, a magnitude 8.8 definitely puts this earthquake at the top of my to-do list. We saw a magnitude 7.4 earthquake here just about 10 days ago. And so I'd been thinking about this fault system already. We'd been sort of watching it just because whenever there's an earthquake, there's a chance of more triggered events. And now we've seen this triggered event, which looks very similar to a large earthquake in 1952. So we knew it could happen. Nobody could have predicted it. But now I think all of earthquake science has a lot of work to do.
This quake was about 12 miles deep. What does that tell you about its potential impact?
In subduction zones, it's a pretty typical depth. Because the shallow part of the subduction zone, and 12 miles in this case is kind of the shallow part of the subduction zone, is the part that's cold enough for the rocks to slide in earthquakes. If you get too deep into the subduction zone, the rocks become too hot, they kind of squish. And sometimes we also see slip in the very shallowest part, but it's hard to tell when that happens because it's far away from land.
You mentioned not being able to predict this. Why are earthquakes so hard to predict, and are we making any progress on that?
Earthquake prediction might not be physically possible. That's kind of the standing understanding of how these work right now, is that when an earthquake happens, it's a sudden event, a failure of the fault that grows unexpectedly. The physics just don't allow us to see when that might happen, because earthquakes are happening all the time. We just don't know when they're going to grow to become very large. So small earthquakes happen a lot. It's the growth to becoming a big one that's really the unpredictable part.
All right, Dr. Judith Hubbard, we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.